this video, we're diving deep into what South Korea really said about Filipinos, what Japan revealed that stunned the world, and why both countries are now fighting for something bigger: the heart, trust, and respect of the Filipino people. But don't blink, because every few minutes we'll uncover a new confession, a new fact, a new truth the mainstream media doesn't want to connect. So stay locked in, because by the end of this journey, you'll know exactly who respects Filipinos more and why the answer isn't as simple as you think. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. On the surface, South Korea is a nation of bullet train speed, world-class technology, and K-pop superstardom. It's a country that projects an image of hyper-modern, self-sufficient excellence, but beneath that glossy surface, there's a hidden truth, a quiet dependency that the world has ignored for far too long. The engine that powers this economic miracle isn't Korean, it's Filipino. We're not talking about just a few dozen people, we're talking about an entire shadow workforce that has become the indispensable backbone of South Korea's most critical industries. They are in the hospitals, providing the care that a rapidly aging population desperately needs. They're on the ships, navigating the global trade that makes Korea a powerhouse. And they're even behind the scenes in the entertainment industry, contributing to the very culture the world has fallen in love with. Without them, the entire system grinds to a halt. It's a reality that, until recently, no one in South Korea was willing to admit. Back in 2020, as the world was gripped by the COVID-19 pandemic, South Korea's hospitals were on the brink, overworked, understaffed, and desperate for help. That's when the quiet heroes stepped up. A Filipino nurse we'll call Maria worked for 16-hour shifts, often with little to no break, holding the hands of scared patients and comforting families who couldn't be there. She wasn't just doing a job, she was a lifeline. And she wasn't alone. Hundreds of Filipino nurses were right there with her, fighting a battle that very few people saw. When the dust settled, a few brave South Korean journalists began to tell their story. Headlines in local media, a quiet admission from government officials, they finally started to call them what they were: our quiet heroes. It was a small but monumental acknowledgement of a debt they had long refused to pay. But here's the most uncomfortable part of this truth. If South Korea publicly praises Filipinos as quiet heroes, if their media admits their critical importance, why do some still face discrimination? Why are stories of OFWs being disrespected in the streets of Seoul still far too common? Why is there a painful disconnect between the public statements of gratitude and the private acts of prejudice? It's a paradox, a contradiction that reveals the deep-seated tension between a nation's pride and its inescapable reality. The truth is, it's easier to praise someone from a distance than it is to treat them as an equal in your own backyard. It's the hidden hypocrisy that makes this story so compelling. Let's get into the hard numbers. The data shows that South Korea is home to over 62,000 documented Filipino workers, with thousands more on short-term contracts. That number is growing every year. Their combined remittances, the money they send back home, is a critical lifeline for the Philippine economy. But it's also a powerful fuel for South Korea. These workers are not just providing a service, they are a two-way economic engine. They are a solution to South Korea's biggest problem: a rapidly aging population and the world's lowest birth rate. By 2050, nearly half the population will be over 60. Without a massive influx of foreign workers, there won't be enough people to care for the elderly, let alone staff the factories or build the skyscrapers. The future of a nation is being built on the backs of those they often refuse to see. Here's the most emotional twist in this entire story. Behind closed doors, away from the public eye, South Korean parents will often admit something truly stunning: we trust Filipinos more than our own. It's an act of vulnerability, an admission that the compassion and care of Filipino caregivers and nurses is something they believe their own children, caught up in a hyper-competitive work culture, cannot provide. It is a testament to the fact that the most valuable commodity in the world is not technology or money, but human kindness. And the Filipino people have it in abundance. They bring something to the table that can't be programmed into a robot or learned from a textbook. They bring heart. That's what makes them more than just workers. That's what makes them heroes. If you've made it this far, you understand the depth of this truth. You understand the immense sacrifice, the quiet heroism, and the painful paradox that defines the Filipino experience in South Korea. If you're proud to be Filipino, if you recognize the strength of their spirit, I want you to make a statement right now. Type the word hero in the comments. Let the world see how many people stand with this truth, because this isn't just a story about a foreign country, it's a story about global human dignity. It's a story about what it means to be seen. But while South Korea was finally confessing their respect, another nation, an economic powerhouse long known for its secrecy and pride, was preparing a statement that would leave the world speechless. They had a problem even bigger than South Korea's, a demographic crisis so profound it was threatening to bring down the entire country. And their solution was also the Filipino people. But what they said about them was 1,000 times more powerful. It wasn't a confession, it was a declaration. And it's a story that starts with one of the biggest secrets Japan never wanted to admit. While South Korea was grappling with its quiet admission, another global superpower was facing an even bigger crisis. For decades, Japan has been a symbol of perfection, a nation where efficiency, order, and national pride are core tenets. But beneath that perfect surface, a demographic time bomb has been ticking for years. This isn't just a problem, it's a national emergency. Japan has the world's oldest population, with an astonishing 30% of its people projected to be over 65 by 2035. That means a critical shortage of working-age adults to support an aging society. Who will staff the hospitals? Who will care for the elderly? Who will keep the economic gears turning? The entire nation was facing a silent, slow-motion collapse, and for a nation that has always prided itself on being self-sufficient, the solution to their biggest problem was unthinkable, until it became unavoidable. They had to look beyond their borders. Consider the story of a Japanese family we'll call the Tanakas. For years, they struggled to find adequate care for their aging grandmother. Overworked and exhausted, they were on the brink of putting her in a nursing home. Then they found Lena, a Filipino caregiver. Lena wasn't just a worker, she was a third parent. She brought not only her professional skills, but a deep, genuine compassion that no training manual could teach. She laughed with the children, listened to the grandmother's stories, and became an indispensable part of their family. And the Tanakas weren't alone. Across Japan, stories like this are commonplace. Quietly, without fanfare, Filipinos have been integrating into the very fabric of Japanese society, providing the human connection that a country facing a demographic winter desperately needs. And in a move that shocked the world, the Japanese government finally did what everyone thought impossible. They publicly acknowledged this dependence, but they didn't just say, "We need foreign workers." They used a term so powerful, so profound, it's still reverberating across the globe. A senior Japanese official, standing before a press conference, declared, "The Filipino people are the lifeblood of our nation's future." Lifeblood. Let that word sink in. That is not a word you use for a temporary worker. That is a word you use for something essential. Something that, if removed, would cause the body to cease to function. It was a formal, public admission that the very survival of Japan's future is tied to the resilience and dedication of the Filipino people. And it wasn't just talk. This confession was backed by a massive new initiative. Japan is now actively recruiting over 200,000 Filipinos to fill critical roles in nursing, IT, and skilled trades. They aren't just looking for a solution to today's problems, they are building the foundation of tomorrow. But here's the newest paradox. If Japan, a nation of such intense national pride, is willing to call Filipinos the lifeblood of their future, why are some Filipinos still treated as second-class citizens? Why are there stories of cultural discrimination and a lack of true social integration? The truth is, while the government and major industries have come to terms with the necessity of Filipino workers, a part of the population still struggles to reconcile this new reality with their long-held belief in a purely Japanese society. The respect is there in policy and in boardrooms, but it hasn't fully trickled down to the streets. It's a painful contradiction, a challenge that both nations and individuals must confront to build a more equitable future. This is no longer a conversation about labor, it's a conversation about human dignity. It's about whether a person's worth is defined by their nationality or by their compassion and skill. If you believe that Filipinos deserve more than just a public confession, if you believe they deserve full respect and recognition worldwide, then I want you to make a powerful statement. Type the word respect in the comments below, because respect should not be conditional, it should be universal. And it should be earned every day through actions, not just words. So the two biggest economic powerhouses in Asia, South Korea and Japan, have both admitted their dependence on Filipinos. Both have made powerful public confessions. But now comes the question that separates the players from the legends. Who is going to back up their words with action? South Korea has praised Filipinos as quiet heroes. Japan has called them the lifeblood of their future. But what does that mean in the real world? Who is actually giving Filipinos a better life? Who is offering them a true home? And who is just using them as a temporary fix for a long-term problem? That's where the rivalry gets explosive, and the results might just shock you. By now, you've heard the stunning confessions. South Korea and Japan, and two economic titans, have publicly admitted their profound dependence on the Filipino people. But a confession is just words. A confession is a promise. And what separates a promise from a powerful, life-changing truth is action. So let's get into the hard reality of what these confessions actually mean for Filipinos on the ground. This isn't about who says the nicer thing. This is about who shows the greater respect. And when you compare the actions of these two nations, the breakdown is a fascinating and telling story of two very different approaches. Let's start with South Korea. Their approach has been one of cultural visibility. You see Filipinos in entertainment, as backup dancers in K-pop performances, and as English teachers. They are a welcome, visible part of the cultural tapestry. South Korea offers a spotlight, a chance for Filipinos to be seen and celebrated in the entertainment and educational sectors. Their contributions are acknowledged in the realm of soft power, a kind of cultural heroism that resonates across the globe. It's a powerful form of recognition that few nations offer. It's an embrace of Filipinos as cultural partners. Now let's look at Japan. Their approach is far more structural. While their cultural integration can be slower and more reserved, their policies offer something far more lasting. Security. Japan has been quietly building stronger, more defined pathways for permanent residency and citizenship. They've been offering long-term visas and social security agreements that show a commitment not just to a worker, but to a person's entire life and future. I think they are building a foundation of structural security that says you are not just here for a few years, you are building a life here, and we will support it. It's a quiet but profound act of respect, a recognition of long-term partnership rather than a short-term fix. Consider two stories that define this difference. In Seoul, a young Filipino student, a huge fan of K-pop, is pursuing a dream. He's seen as a cultural ally by his peers, but in the street, he still faces subtle yet painful moments of prejudice. His worth is celebrated on a stage, but questioned in the public square. Let's look at a Filipino engineer in Tokyo. She came on a technical visa, and for years, she was just an excellent employee. But then, as her company grappled with a leadership gap, she was not only offered a senior leadership role, but a direct pathway to permanent residency. She wasn't just seen as a worker, but as a long-term asset, a vital pillar for the company's and the nation's future. One nation offers a cultural spotlight, the other offers structural security. Both are valuable, but which one is a truer form of respect? Which one goes beyond words and into the very fabric of a person's life? This is the heart of the matter. Both nations are fundamentally shifting their narratives. They're moving from seeing Filipinos as just workers to seeing them as partners. The dialogue is no longer about managing a labor pool. It's about nurturing a long-term symbiotic relationship. This shift in mindset is the most powerful act of all, an admission that they need to move beyond their own cultural comfort zones to secure their future. And this is not just a lesson for Korea or Japan. It's a lesson for the entire world. A lesson that a nation's strength is no longer measured by its homogeneity, but by its willingness to embrace the diversity of the people who come to its aid. So the question remains, which nation's actions speak louder than its words? Who do you think respects Filipinos more? South Korea's cultural embrace or Japan's structural security? Type Korea or Japan in the comments right now. Make your voice heard, because in this unfolding story, your opinion matters. Your perspective is the final piece of this puzzle. Both nations had a choice to continue their quiet dependence or to make a public statement. They chose to speak. They chose to confess. But their confessions were only the beginning, because then came a moment neither country expected. A confession that turned Filipinos from workers into something far greater. A revelation so profound it changed the global narrative forever. And that is the final jaw-dropping conclusion to this incredible story. We've reached the climax of this story, the moment that turned a regional conversation into a global reckoning. Because the Japanese official didn't just make a statement, he uttered a truth so powerful that it rippled across every continent. The words were a direct admission. Filipinos are no longer just workers, they are the lifeblood of our nation's survival. It was a moment of humbling honesty from a nation not known for it. More importantly, it was a profound act of empowerment for an entire people. This wasn't about the power of the Japanese government. This was about the power of the Filipino diaspora, a power the world was finally being forced to acknowledge. That one statement from Tokyo was a public invitation for the world to look in the mirror. You see, the same quiet dependency that defines Japan and South Korea's economies is happening everywhere. In the UK, Filipinos make up a significant portion of the National Health Service, NHS. In the Middle East, Filipino workers build the towering skylines of Dubai and Riyadh, and in the United States and Canada, they are the compassionate nurses, the dedicated tech workers, and the backbone of the service industry. This isn't a coincidence. This is a global system built on the hard work and sacrifice of the Filipino people. They are the world's hidden heroes. And their lifeline status in Japan is just a microcosm of their essential role everywhere else. And here's the terrifying payoff, the chilling truth that every nation now has to face. What happens if this global backbone decides to stop? What happens if every Filipino working abroad, from the nurses in London to the seafarers on the high seas, decides to come home for even 1 year? The consequences would be catastrophic. The Philippines receives over $35 billion in annual remittances, making it one of the largest recipients in the world. That money fuels entire sectors, supports millions of families, and props up local economies. Without that flow, the Philippines economy would be devastated, but the host countries, they would collapse. Industries would grind to a halt. Hospitals would be unable to care for the sick and elderly. Global trade, which relies on Filipino seafarers, who make up about 25% of the world's maritime workforce, would choke to a standstill. This isn't hyperbole. This is the new global reality. The world cannot function without the Filipino people. This isn't just about South Korea vs. Japan. This is about the power of the Filipino people, a power they never asked for, but a power the world can no longer ignore. Their strength isn't in military might or political influence. It's in their compassion, their resilience, and their willingness to give so much of themselves to others. It's a quiet power, but it is the single most important human resource on the planet today. They are not just workers, they are a force of nature. And their contribution isn't just a service, it is a gift that sustains nations. If you've made it this far, if you understand the gravity of this confession and the truth behind it, I want you to make a statement. I want you to give these modern day heroes the recognition they deserve. In the comments below, right now, type the words Filipino people. Let the world see a collective show of strength and solidarity, because it's the Filipino people who are the real story here. It's their journey, their sacrifice, and their undeniable worth that are changing the way nations must think about their own futures. Japan's confession was a turning point. It wasn't an isolated event. It was the first domino in a chain reaction of truth. And the message is simple. You cannot build a nation's future on silence and invisibility. You must honor the people who build it with their own two hands. You must call them your lifeblood, and you must admit, just as Japan has, that your survival depends on them. This is the truth, and it's here to stay. The world has a new backbone, a new engine of progress, and it is, and always will be, the Filipino people. So who respects Filipinos more, South Korea or Japan? The truth is, both nations revealed something bigger. Respect isn't just in words, it's in action, in policies, in stories lived every single day. And if there's one thing this story proves, it's this. The Filipino people are not replaceable. They are not invisible. They are essential to South Korea, to Japan, to the entire world. But here's the real question. What happens when Filipinos finally decide to claim that power?